Wow, look at those leaves, guys. Aren't those amazing? Red leaves, and then we've got green and yellow. Isn't that incredible? That is beautiful. Well, guys, it's a nice day out here. It's a far cry from perfect, but it's still all right. It's nice. Bit rainy, bit cloudy. How's the weather where you are? Is it perfect, or is it a far cry from perfect? Okay. What does that mean? A far cry from? Have you ever heard that before? Well, I'll teach you. Smash like if you want to learn. If you don't want to learn, give me a thumbs down. I deserve it. So guys, a far cry from means, well, the term far cry means a far distance. Okay, so I could say Montreal is a far cry from Calgary. Okay, I live in Alberta here. Montreal is like a 3 or 4 day drive, right? So why am I pointing that way? It's actually that way. I think my directions are all mixed up now. So far cry means a far distance. Okay, now the word cry has two meanings. It can mean to cry, like tears, like the baby is crying, but the word cry can also be to like shout, or to say something or make a noise with your mouth that is really loud. Okay, so if we say the sentence like he cried out, help me. Okay, that means he's not crying, he's saying in a loud voice, help me. Like he cried out, help me, right? So cry has both of those meanings. Now in this idiom, a far cry from, I guess it would be the voice meaning. I don't know. I don't think about these things much, but I just want to tell you that that's what this means. A far cry from means we're comparing two things. Okay, we're comparing something lesser to something greater. Now how you say it is you start with the lesser thing, and then you say a far cry from, and then you say the greater thing. So for example, I said today this weather is all right. It's all right, but it's a far cry from perfect. Okay, so today is this weather. Look at these leaves here, guys. Remember a few days ago I was out here and I was saying all these green leaves are going to change color soon. Well, now they're changing, guys. Fall is upon us. Look at these beautiful colors. Man, I just, you know, one thing about fall that I love is just the colors. They're just the red and the yellow and the green. I mean, even in one bush, look at this, like one bush. Okay, we've got red, we've got green, dark berries, dark blue berries, I guess, and we've got yellow. So green, red, and yellow, guys. It's just gorgeous, very beautiful. I love fall for the colors. Okay, so when you're using this idiom or this phrase, you could say you're starting with the thing that is worse, and then you're comparing it to the thing that is bigger or better or greater in some way. Okay, so let's make some examples. You could say I just moved into my new house. You know, it's okay. It's a far cry from my last house. Okay, so so what does that mean? That means now you moved into a house. It's maybe a bit small. It's smaller than your last house. my house now is a far cry from what I used to have. Okay, that means your house that you used to have before was better in some way, bigger maybe, you know, or you could say, you know, I mean, let's say you get a new, let's say you buy a car, and it's a, let's say it's a small car, and you used to have a big SUV. Let's say you could say, this car is nice, I like my new car. It's you could say size wise, it's a far cry from what I used to have. Okay, so you're used to having a big SUV, you're used to having a lot of space where you can put stuff, and now you have a small car, and maybe it's better, maybe the car is better now that you have, but size wise, that means relating to the size wise, the SUV was better because it had more space, right? So size wise, you know, it's a far cry from the SUV, right? So so what other examples could we make? You could say, I got a new job. My new job, I'm making enough money to live, but it's a far cry from my last job, or it's a far cry from what I would like to be making. Okay, so let's say your last job, you were making $60,000 a year, and now you got a job making $30,000 a year. Well, that means you can say, you know, I'm thankful for my job now, but it's a far cry from the job I had before. So, right, so the greater one is after far cry, right? So try to understand how to make this sentence. Okay. So you start with the smaller one and you go to the bigger one. So yeah, you could say the job I have now, I can make ends meet. If you make ends meet, that means you can pay your bills. Okay, you have enough money to buy food and pay your bills and stuff. So you could say, yeah, I can make ends meet, but it's a far cry from what I would like to be making. I mean, maybe you want to make like $100,000 a year. Well, then you could say, yeah, it's a far distance, right? If you're making $30,000 a year and you want to make $100,000 a year, that's a big distance. So then you could say, yeah, it's a far cry from what I would like to be making. Okay. What other examples could we make? Now, we could say, for example, let's say you have a company and you spent some money last year. Let's say last year you spent $60,000, and this year you spent $20,000. Then you could say our expenses this year were $20,000, which is a far cry from our expenses last year, right? So the bigger number is after, even though in this case maybe it's worse because you don't want to be spending money, right? You don't want high expenses, but because the value of the expenses is higher, we put that at after a far cry from, right? So this year our expenses were $20,000, which is a far cry from our expenses last year. Okay, so that means last year you spent more money. So we can use this in really any situation. You could say, I mean, the whole point of this is to compare two things, right? Anything that's a big difference, it's a big difference. That's why it's the word far. Far means big, right? You're not comparing like, let's say you're comparing two kinds of pie. One kind of pie, let's say pumpkin pie, you like, and apple pie you like a little bit more. We wouldn't use this idiom then because you like both of them like very similar, right? Maybe you hate pumpkin pie, let's say, and you love apple pie. Then you could say that. You could say, you know, yeah, I'll eat pumpkin pie if it's served to me, but it's a far cry from apple pie. That means you love apple pie way more, right? You wouldn't go out and buy pumpkin pie, right? Because that's what you're saying. Yeah, I'll eat it if it's served to me, but I would never go out and buy it. So it's you could say it's a far cry from apple pie. How about you? Do you like apple pie better or pumpkin pie? I like apple pie better. It's better, but for me, I wouldn't say a far cry from, because I do like pumpkin pie too, right? So that's why we use this phrase when we're comparing things that are pretty far apart from each other. Like you could say, you know, the movie was a far cry from the book. Okay, the movie was all right, but it was a far cry from the book. A lot of people who love reading books say that when they watch a movie about the book, it's somehow disappointing. It lets them down. You know, like Lord of the Rings fans, any real Lord of the Rings fans, they've read those books many times, and they might like the movies as well, but usually they say the books are way better, right? Actually, I read a book recently called The Life of Pi. It was what can I say about that book? The Life of Pi. It was a pretty big book. It's a long book. It's a few hundred pages, at least. And then after reading the book, I watched the movie. They made a movie about it. You can find the movie online, probably. It's called The Life of Pi. Here's some noises, guys. I thought it was an ice cream truck, but I don't think it's a good day to serve ice cream, guys. It's raining. You can see on the canal there, raindrops. And now, if you like rainy weather, then this is a perfect day. But for me, when I was comparing today to perfect weather, I'm comparing it in my mind to like a nice sunny day, no wind, calm, peaceful, right? Guys, look at this contrast here between the green and that like burgundy color, maroon. I don't know what color with. Look at that, just a contrast, eh? Green and like bright burgundy or maroon. It's I wouldn't describe it as red. I mean, yeah, you could maybe call some of these leaves red, but like, for example, this color, that's a darker color. So I would I'm not a color specialist, but I would describe that as either maroon or burgundy. You'll have to Google pictures of what's the difference between maroon and burgundy. I don't know, guys. But so okay, with that book, The Life of Pi, have you ever read that book or watched the movie? So I did both. I watched the movie after I read the book, and I was like, man, like, this movie is so short compared to everything that happened in the book. Like, the author of that book is a very talented writer, incredible writer. He can take the smallest little event and turn it into like a whole chapter. So it's a really descriptive book. But like, did anything really happen? So the whole story, is a boy and a tiger on a lifeboat in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. That's the whole book, basically. And so when you're watching the movie, you know, the movie has to condense like the whole book. And that's why movies are generally, maybe people are disappointed in movies because like it doesn't include all the details from the book, right? Now for me, I didn't really enjoy the book that much. The story was just about a boy and a tiger on a lifeboat in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. The entire story, basically. There was no real story. It was just about the events that happened, like the day-to-day, like fishing, or how this boy was trying to stay alive. And that was the story. He's on a boat, there's a tiger. Like, the author makes it exciting because of his writing style. He's a very good writer. But was it really an interesting storyline? There was nothing much that happened. There weren't any characters, right? Like most stories, they have different characters, right? So you might have, like, I mean, let's say a movie like, or a book like Lord of the Rings, right? It has so many different characters. So there's the elves, there's this kind of people, and that kind of these orcs, weird demon creatures called orcs. There's these all wizards. There's all these different kinds of people and all these different characters. But with this book, The Life of Pi, it's about one boy and one tiger on one lifeboat in the Pacific Ocean. And so not much happens story-wise, but and anyway, it's a brilliantly written book. I wish I could write like that. Very amazing writing. Just the description of the simplest events. It's incredible. But yeah, when I watched the movie, I was thinking there'd be like a scene of like 30 seconds of some fish like flying or jumping out of the water or something. And I was thinking, like, that 30-second scene in the movie took hours of writing in the book. Like, the way he described it in using words just took a tremendous amount of the book. And in the movie, it's like 30 seconds, right? So, I don't know, guys. So you could say the movie was a far cry from the book. That means in some way the book was better. You're comparing the book as better. Now, it could be the other way around. You could probably say, if you want to say that the movie was better, you could say the book was a far cry from the movie. But in this case, I mean, usually movies are based on books. Usually people don't write books based on movies, right? Like, it's usually the book that comes first and then the movie after. But I'm sure there are cases where the movie came first and then people wrote a book after. I don't know. So guys, I mean, you don't need to get too technical with this phrase. I'm just trying to teach you how to use it, right? So you could say, you know, the movie was a far cry from the book. All right. So let me know in your life, let me know some examples. What is a far cry from something? You know, try to make a sentence, try to make a sample sentence and post it down there in the comments. Something in your life that you've experienced. Maybe you went to a restaurant and you could say, you know, this restaurant is a far cry from the other restaurant. I mean, maybe in your city there are 2 Mexican restaurants, okay? And you tried one and it was great, right? Great food. And then you tried a different Mexican restaurant and it just didn't quite, you know, it wasn't as good as the other one. Then you could say, yeah, the second restaurant that we tried, it was a far cry from the first one. A far cry from that other one, whatever it's called. You could put in the name of the restaurant if you want. But anyway, that's, you know, that's another example there. So anytime you're comparing two things, you know, any two things that are kind of far apart, two experiences maybe that you had. Like if you went camping this year and you had a little bit of fun, but last year's camping trip was way more fun, you could say, yeah, you know, we had a decent time, but it was a far cry from the fun we had last year. All right, so anyway guys, there's a phrase for you to compare two things in English. So with that, I will sign off from here in beautiful Alberta, Canada. Rainy, a little bit drizzle. It's just drizzling a bit. It's not raining too hard. If you know, like this, you could call it drizzle, not rain. Like it's, I mean, I've been walking around for what, like 10-15 minutes here, and it's like, it's not, I'm not soaked, right? If it was actually raining, I would be soaked. All right, my hat isn't even wet, guys, so it's not really rain. You can call it drizzle. So it's drizzling out here. So anyway guys, as always, I love you so much. Hope you're staying safe and healthy and happy wherever you are. And well, as always, I'll see you guys over in the next episode of Mad English TV. Take care.